Okay, so let's talk about the second part of digital cameras, which is the manual settings. Okay, so let's talk about a couple things first. First of all, when you delete your photos from your camera, are they really gone? Well, no, technically they're not really gone. You simply can't see them anymore. So once you tell your camera that you want to delete photographs, it erases your ability to see them. And once you start taking more pictures, it replaces the slots that your deleted photos were in. So once you start saving over top of them, then technically they're gone. Just something you should know when you delete your photographs. Let's talk about what happens when you format your memory card. Basically what happens when you format your memory card is it gets wiped clean. And there is a wipe, and there's also a super wipe. And through our cameras we can do just a regular wipe. And basically why you would do this is because when you take photographs and you delete them, it kind of leaves remnants on your memory card, kind of like cobwebs, if you will. And it takes up space. So if you format it, it wipes it clean and allows you to continue taking as many pictures as the card would normally allow. Now, if you're having a problem with your memory card, formatting it can fix the situation. However, you want to make sure that all your photographs have been backed up off of that memory card, otherwise you will lose them. What should you do if you accidentally delete all of your photographs? It happens. You know, a friend's using your camera, not really sure how to use it. Maybe a little brother or a nephew or a grandchild is accidentally deleting your pictures from your camera. Just by accident. It happens to us all. What you can do is there is software that you can buy or download. It's very cheap to get your photographs back. Now, once you delete them, you've realized you have deleted them. You should stop taking pictures immediately because you don't want to replace those pictures that you deleted, like we talked about a few seconds ago. So you should take them, plug in your memory card to your computer, and let your software get all your photographs back. You should do that first before you take any more pictures beyond that. I do have a program in Classroom, so you should come see me. Parts of a digital camera. So let's talk about the parts. Let's take a look at this first image here. Well, it's not zooming in exactly like I liked it to, as I wanted to. So we'll back out of that. Okay, parts of a digital camera. If we take a look right up here, we have our viewfinder. This allows you to look through the camera to see what you'll be shooting at. And you also have an LCD screen, which will show you the ultimate image after you've taken it. A lot of times you can see your settings in your LCD screen. Now, not all cameras have viewfinders, point and shoots. Some do not. Some of them just have a touch screen or no viewfinder at all and just have your settings on the back of the camera. SLR cameras, mostly you can only look through the viewfinder to view what you're going to take your photographs of. There are new features that allow you to look through the LCD screen, but if you do have a camera something like this, most people like to look through the viewfinder. So let's talk about another part of the digital camera. Now these are the Nikons that we have in class. So pointed to this blue arrow, we have the timer. If you ever hear your camera going beep, 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 takes 10 seconds to take the photograph, chances are your timer's on. And all you have to do is press that little icon maybe once or twice to turn that feature off. Next to the yellow arrow is your flash icon. All of these settings are standard on every digital camera. Every time you see this icon, you have your flash button. To turn it on or off, you can press that button and it will scroll through the different options for your flash. Next one down, at the bottom, we have our trash can. It's how we can delete any of our photographs. And then we have a macro option for our cameras as well. This allows you to take close-up shots nicely, especially when when your camera's having a hard time focusing on something close up, especially something small like a flower. So when you're doing close-up shots, macro is the way to go. Now it's zooming. Okay, outer settings of your cameras. Let's talk about that. Okay, now we have this little image right here shows us the top of our camera. So the first thing we're going to look at are the two green arrows. This is your zoom. Okay, so T stands for telephoto, W stands for wide angle. And you can toggle whatever option you have to zoom in and out on your camera, and T will zoom you closer to a subject, W will zoom you out so you get a wider view. We also have our scene and setting modes. This is the dial that we have on top of our cameras that can allow you to change your mode. And the yellow arrow shows us our shutter button. Usually with a shutter button you can hold it halfway down for it to focus before you press it all the way down to take the picture. I'm going to go through this. We're going to zoom around, kind of in a circle a little bit. Couldn't figure out how to stop that. Okay, let's talk about our modes. This is the dial on top of our camera. Some of these modes will be on your digital camera, some of them will be only on your SLRs, and some of them will be on your point and shoots. Some of these options also will be hidden under the menu setting in your camera, so it really depends on the camera that you have. Automatic mode, little green camera. This allows your camera to automatically do absolutely everything. You don't have to do a thing. The camera makes all the decisions for you. Sports setting. This particular sports setting will make a very fast shutter, so you can capture something moving and make it stop in your image without it blurring. This option will, on this camera, will take many photographs all at once, so you'll end up with 20 to 25 photographs as you press the shutter button. Next we have our manual scene selector and our auto scene selector. This one right here, regular scene, allows you to cycle through beach settings, snow settings, museum settings, portrait settings, dim light settings. Depending on your camera will depend on the type of settings that you have. Now this auto scene selector here, this is an automatic setting, so it will automatically choose the setting it thinks you happen to be in. This little square happy face here is a smart portrait. It looks and waits for people to smile. It's a helpful feature, and it will wait for even just one person to smile. There's also a blink feature involved as well. Up here we have our manual mode and an aperture priority mode, a shutter priority mode, and then P is your program mode, which we'll talk about very soon. Scene mode, so they vary from camera to camera. On our cameras, you're going to turn the dial to scene, press menu on the back of the camera, and choose scene at the top of the menu. These are just some examples of what your scene modes might look like. Okay, let's talk about our manual settings. Let's start with aperture. So aperture is the size of the opening in the lens when a photo is taken. When you press the shutter, your lens is going to open and it's going to close. In the time that it's open, it's going to record your image on its sensor and record all of the information of the scene that you're looking at. The larger the opening, the more light gets in. The smaller the opening, the less light gets in. It's very similar to how our eyes work. If you stand in front of a mirror and turn the light on, you'll see that your eye is going to, the pupil of your eye is going to get smaller because there's too much light. If you turn the lights off, you're going to see that your eye gets wider so that it allows more light so that you can see in dimmer light. The way this works, it works in terms of f-stops. So anytime you see in your camera f and then a number, you're talking about aperture. Now if you notice with this diagram down here, this is basically what it looks like when your lens opens and closes. Now notice that a wide open aperture is a small number, f2.8. And notice that a very small opening has a large aperture number. So it kind of works in terms of opposites. So the larger the aperture number, the smaller the size of the opening. And the smaller the number of aperture, the larger your opening is going to be. So again, it works in terms of opposites. Okay, this is kind of a nice little diagram. It really shows you how aperture works. So at an f16, a large f-stop number, a large aperture number, you have a very small opening. So you can see in normal daylight, it would cause your image to be very dark. And if you look at the opposite end, you notice that a 1.4 aperture number, a small number, would give you a very wide opening, so that it brings in a lot of white, and therefore this image is very blown out and there's way too much light. So on a very normal average day, you would maybe want to start around 5.6 and then kind of work your way in one way or another depending on what your day is like. Let me skip over that one for now. Okay, let's talk about depth of field. Depth of field is directly related to aperture. Basically, it is the amount of your shot that's going to be in focus. So depth of field has everything to do with focus. So if you take a look over here on the left-hand side, we have an image that has large depth of field. So depth of field, I want you to think about how deep into the field of your picture is it in focus. So right here we can see that the flowers are in focus, but pretty much everything to the back of our image, deep into our image, is somewhat in focus. It's not terribly blurry, but you can still make out exactly what's going on back there. So this is what we call a large depth of field, which means that most of your image will be in focus, your background and your foreground. Now this opposite picture, same pictures of the flowers, however this is what we call a small depth of field or a shallow depth of field. It means only part of your image will be in focus and the rest will be fuzzy or blurry. This is kind of a nice effect with flowers or with portraits. Okay, depth of field, how do you control it? Now you have to let's talk about subject placing. You want to stand closer to your main subject, but you want your subject to be further away from its background. If your subject is standing right up against something, your camera can't determine the background and the foreground because there's only one, your subject and what it's up against. There is no background. They're all the same ground. Use this if you want your portrait to stand out against the background. Zoom all the way in, that will help get your shallow depth of field. With aperture, you want to use a small f-stop if you're looking for a shallow depth of field. And if you think of people standing in a line, if the person closest to you, if you want just them in focus, you would use a small f-stop. The person furthest away, maybe it was 5 people back, if you wanted everyone to be in focus, you would use a larger f-stop. This is a perfect example. Shallow depth of field, very crisp foreground, very blurry background. And this one kind of gives you the same effect. Okay, so we're going to take a look at